Hey there, everybody. Good to be back with you. Different setup, as you can see. You can get a little more of the table. I've had so many of you say you wanted to see more of the cards, so I've kind of moved the camera back a little bit so you can see more of what's happening on the table. I hope you enjoy that. Let me know. If you are new to the channel, just landed here, I'm a Fefe with Touch by Tarot and Beyond. I'm glad to have you here. Hope you stick around, hit that like and subscribe button. Very, very important. And I'd appreciate that. My regular subscribers, thank you so much. And my members, you already know. So appreciate you beyond. So, and looking forward to doing a lot more work with you. Our monthly private Zoom meetings. We'll have one coming up. I do it the last Friday of every month, next Friday, but I'll make an announcement about that. Looking forward to it always. All right, you all. I am going to put a link in the description box. I just finished watching a video that is on YouTube by reporter Andy Kroll. Wrote this incredible piece in Propublica and then subsequently did the video on Russell Vought, the shadow president. Many of you have reached out to me to say, let's go to Spirit and take a deeper look at Russ Vought, because he has sort of increasingly in recent months we're hearing more about him, but he sort of floated under the radar, and because there's been so many other people to look at more closely. A lot of emphasis on Stephen Miller, others within the administration in recent months. But Russ Vought, yesterday at a luncheon for GOP, the Senate, GOP leaders, Kankles went ahead and introduced and gave props and a shout out to Russ Vought as his own personal Darth Vader. Quote unquote Darth Vader. And he said, I wrote it down, this is Kankle speaking, they call him Darth Vader. I call him a fine man. Makes you think of Charlottesville, doesn't it? Fine people. So, and they said that the response, interestingly, the response from the Senate GOP leaders in the audience was a sort of awkward silence followed by clapping. Because what else are you going to do, right? Here's what I want to look at, you all. Is Russ Vought basically using and propping up Kankles, who increasingly we're hearing about dementia, we're hearing about, not thinking straight, not able to form full sentences, etc. So who's feeding him all of this? Where is it coming from? Who's really behind the driving wheel at the White House? Is it in fact Russ Vought? And now we are hearing increasingly, from Democrats. Look, you all, you better keep in mind that when the other end, other side of the rainbow happens with this, yes, Kankles, should he still be here, may have immunity, but you do not. And I want to take a look and go to Spirit and see, is Russ Vought going to be taken down? Will he face charges? Will he be prosecuted? Like, what's going to happen with this guy who said, early on, 30 years in D.C. I didn't know that. I did not recognize his history. Started out in a mailroom, apparently, and so for decades has just become a real DC insider. And Spirit is also saying, you all keep in mind that while a lot of focus now, spiritually and otherwise, politically, is being put on JD Vance, right? Right there waiting to step in and ascend any day now, that ultimately JD Vance is an outsider. He is still an outsider. He's a DC outsider. He's a political outsider, weaseling his way, entertainment purposes only, to try and have this influence, right? But is it ultimately Russ Vought who would run him as well, right? So that's what we're going to look at. Spirit, is Russ Vought running the White House? For all intents and purposes, is he the one in charge? The Chariot, right at the bottom of the deck, the Chariot. Wow. This is his agenda, Heritage Foundation, Project 2025. Step by step, he put all of this in motion. Spirit, what is Russ Vaught's power or influence over DJT? In truth, What is his real power and influence? Seven of Swords. He's got him duped. He Vought has, this is a card of betrayal, deceit, masks over the face, where I present myself one way, but really it's something else. The fact that much of Russ Vaught's background has been this, expansion of Christian nationalism, right? Steve Bannon getting on board with him with a lot of that. So Trump relates to that, but now Trump coming out, I'm sorry, I shouldn't even say his name. Cankles. Take a sip of juice. Cankles saying this is Darth Vader, embracing the darkness. He's a fine man. He's our Darth Vader, but he's a fine man. Seven of Swords. And the Fool. Woo! All right. Taking the White House into uncharted territory. Literally tearing it down, which we're going to look at that as well, this takedown of the East Wing and who knows what else. But the Fool is his Vought saw and sees Cankles as a means to an end. Always did. Always saw him as a means to an end to literally remake how the White House functions. And now put things in spirit. Was it Vought's idea to destroy parts of the White House itself for this ballroom? Was this Vought's doing as well? We have the Eight of Cups. I see that as a yes, because it's a card that says walk away from what was and go for what you want. That's spirit. Give me more confirmation, please. Is this Russ Vaught's doing? What we're seeing happening at the White House, is this his doing? And the Eight of Pentacles, spirit is doubling down with these eights. Eights are cards of mastery, skill, time spent planning to walk away from how the White House existed in the past. And Eight of Pentacles, the actual demolition and reconstruction, the plan put in place to remake it into something else. You all, this man is the one sitting there. Spirit, for entertainment purposes only, is saying this is the man sitting there and wielding the real power. And the Knight of Cups, because he's also planning to ride the wave toward the future. He plans to be around for a very long time. I don't think that he has presidential aspirations. Ace of Cups. Whoa, wait a minute. Let me back it up a little bit. Does Vought have presidential aspirations? Is he doing this? The Devil. Ooh. Look, tried to pick it up and fell out my hand. He fears it. There's something in his background that would come to light. And so while he wants it, he fears it. He wants the power, but he fears it for some reason. And strength. He genuinely sees the office of president as more of a puppeteering role, and the OMB is his space of power, because it does, that's the money, right? That was where he always wanted to be, because that's that financial center and running things, and that's where he sees his real strength. He sees his strength as in controlling money. The money is what turns him on. The control over the money, not the persona or the personification of being a leader or being a president of the United States. That's not where what he wants. He wants the Three of Pentacles. He loves being able to work exactly how he is now, to shape policy from where he sees it as a more powerful angle, to basically move the chess pieces behind cankles for the time being. And then he sees that as being, so does Spirit, does Vought see himself as more powerful than JD Vance? Does he see himself as being able to manipulate JD Vance if and when he takes office? The Hermit, he does. Absolutely. And he sees him as being able to out manipulate him. The Hermit being a card of detailed analysis, day by day routine work. Essentially, he sees himself as the one who could say, I am the insider. I am the one who knows every facet of government that you will never, I know more than you will ever learn, essentially would be his approach to Vance. And the King of Cups. I don't know his astrological sign. Vought. I don't know his astrological sign. If that's him, is that who I'm looking at? Because you know what? He and the Page of Cups. I think so. Or because he's convinced in a really strange way of his own vision, that it is right and that it is what his version of America really wants. And that is what makes him appealing. He sees himself as having tighter bonds to someone like a Steve Bannon, a Tucker Carlson, that contingent. He sees himself, because as a DC insider, as having tighter bonds with people than JD Vance does or will have. And we have the Five of Cups. Exactly. There's a struggle, an emotional struggle that Vance is feeling. Spirit, does Vance fear Russ Vought? Does he fear Russ Vaught's power? Does he fear him in some way? We have the Six of Pentacles. He doesn't fear him. He sees him as a cohort, but he recognizes, I'm gonna have to be able to work with this guy, because Six of Pentacles is that card of give and take, right? He sees as the duly elected, as the vice president. Vance sees himself as having technically more control, but he also recognizes that Vought is in that sweet spot of power. And the Four of Pentacles. So there will be a struggle between Vance and Vought, for who ultimately has more power. Because Vance will be looking at it as, I have it in the label. I have it in the, constitutionally, I have it, right? But Vought is the one who's laid all the groundwork. Vought is literally remaking the foundation of how the White House operates. And so there's going to be that struggle for control. Who really has it? The other thing that I want to ask, I need to pick up now, is the second part of this is, will Russ Vought, keeping in mind that we are hearing more and more from the Democratic side and others saying, look, people, you've gone too far. And at some point, there will be a price to pay for this. And while there is immunity in the executive branch in terms of the president, that doesn't extend to you. You are subject to prosecution, right? Spirit, will we see Russ Vought brought to justice? Ooh. I'm done. Judgment. And you saw it fly out. I guess that is one reason why I like showing more of the table. You all can see what's happening. Judgment. Wow. There's a, like, all eyes are going to be on Russ Vought. I don't know when. You know what? Spirit had me pull this timing oracle out today. I don't use it a lot, but I'm going to see if I can get a time frame. Spirit, when will we see the tide turn on Russ Vought? This whole Darth Vader thing. Something's telling me as well. Spirit is saying, listen, that did not fly and go over well with a lot of members in the Senate who were at that luncheon yesterday, the Republicans. That didn't go over well. There's an association with that. I mean, how do you reconcile that with being a Christian? How do you reconcile that? So even among the most right-leaning those who are in favor of a degree of Christian nationalism, there were senators sitting out there like, whoa, 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 whoa. And that wasn't just Kankles talking out his mind, with his antics. That was the deal. That this embracing that Vought has. We want them in trauma. We want them hurt. We want them to not want to come to work. We want the shutdown to go on because now it's at a point of even impacting courts, money for the courts. So yeah, we'll shut down the courts too. Why not? What am I getting? 2 things just popped out. The next couple of weeks and February. That's an interesting combination. Next couple of weeks in February. So on the one hand, next couple of weeks feels like it could indicate clearly there will be more. This Propublica piece, again, remember, I'm going to post a link. You should watch it. It's worth a watch. Watching this video, this Andy Kroll from Propublica. Next couple of weeks, it feels like there's a lot of... This is also around the government shutdown itself. Spirit said last week or earlier, last week, that the government should reopen within the first half of November. So that, Spirit, are you speaking to the next couple of weeks around the government reopening? Seven of Pentacles. Negotiations, figuring out how to do it, and the High Priestess. That's a maybe. Because what they're trying to do is so within the next couple of weeks, what they're trying to do, you all, is the Republicans are trying to figure out how to basically bring in the votes that they need from the Democratic side, pretending to promise certain things that they can then later renege on. And that's what the Democratic leadership has been talking about all along, is that, no, you can't tell us you're going to keep healthcare for the next year, or that you will only negotiate with us once we agree to reopen the government, and then we can take you at your word that you will sit down in good faith with us at the table. That's what this High Priestess energy is about. And so the next couple of weeks, going back to Russ Vought, there's something where he has to come up with a solution that he can sell to Kankles, who can then give the okay to Congress. Is that right, Spirit? Is that what I'm seeing? The 3 of Wands. Yeah, there's going to be growing momentum within the next couple of weeks, because what they don't want to do is have this extend to the holidays. This is going to be absolute chaos should this shutdown extend into the holidays, with travel, with other situations, with continued payment to federal workers. Now, we heard that they were trying to, Kankles directed them to find the money to go ahead and pay the military. Haven't heard anything else about that since. Like, have they been paid, right? That's what that is. So that's the next couple of weeks part. Now, this February piece, Spirit, are you saying that by February we will see some shifts around Russ Vought and his positioning in the White House? Will we see shifts around him? The 8 of Wands. Ooh. Yeah. Messaging, energy, hyped energy. I even, in this, there's like an arrow being pointed, a closer look at him. And the Hierophant, the government, the governmental structure, the structure of the White House. There's eyes are going to be on this man. And is this coming from Congress? Because that's the only thing that would stop him right now. Like, Stephen Miller's going to say something. Scott Besson's going to say something. Pam Bonnie's going to say something. Todd Blanche is going to say something. Susie Wiles is going to say something. It has to come from Congress. It has to. And because OMB and Congress supposedly being the power, having the power of the purse, and this impounding funds that have been approved already by Congress, impounding by not by the shadow president, right? Vote. That's what we're hearing. The star. Okay. February, Aquarius, the star ruled by Aquarius. You all, something's happening by February. And I know sitting here before we even get into November, February may feel like a really, really long time off, but I got to give it to you like I see it. And that's what Spirit is saying right now. Around February, we had two major arcana that showed up here, the Hierophant and the star. Star also being a time of Aquarius, and the Hierophant representing government, authority, leaders. You're going to see something happen around Russ Vought. And remember, we started out with Judgment. Judgment being big news, ruled by Pluto, big news, big transformation, something huge coming around Russ Vought. Because with this story, and everybody knew it, as I said, many of you have been asking me to look at Russ Vought for some time. My question going in was, would he be prosecuted? I think there's what Spirit is saying, you all, is there's something that's going to come to light by February that could very well lead to that. All right. I want to move on now, you all, quickly. We're hearing that Kinkles is demanding this, or thinking about demanding this $230 million repayment from the Department of Justice for the cases that were brought against him, right? I had gone to Spirit months ago because his attorneys, which included Todd Blanche back then, before he became Deputy Attorney General, his attorneys were mumbling some stuff about wanting to get reimbursed for his expenses once Kinkles got back in the White House. And it was like, nah, you can't do that. Those cases didn't have anything to do with your function in government. It was against you, what you did, your actions, right? So now we're hearing he's sitting like, well, you know what? Maybe I need that money back. Maybe I need that $230 million back. But if I get it, maybe I'll donate it to charity. Here's the thing. It's really, so they're saying Blanche, as Deputy Attorney General, may have to recuse himself from executing on any such demands because of the fact that he was his attorney during the time that this was happening. So he may have to recuse himself, which leaves Bondi in the hot seat. Now, Bondi is already, we've been seeing Bondi is not necessarily Kinkle's favorite person lately, which has a lot to do with why he brought Lindsay Halligan in on the scene, right? Lindsay Halligan, who is, taking some stances, and she's also in hot water, but that's another reading for another day. But she's taking some stances without even consulting Bondi. Just said, here's what I'm fitting to do, right? Wow, a lot going on there. Bondi. Will she move forward if he directs her to come up with that money to reimburse him? The High Priestess, she's going to try and duck and hide from it. Because, again, this is about people understanding, or like, hello, do you understand you can be prosecuted for what you're doing right now? You don't have the protections that he does. And the Seven of Swords, the deception, and works perfectly with the High Priestess. Bondi's going to try and weasel her way out of that. Or if she feels like she has to proceed and try to figure out how to smooth things over with Kinkles, she's going to try and do it in secret. She doesn't want anything that she does to come to light, but that's not going to happen. Sooner or later, will there be whistleblowers that tell us, should she try and move some money around for Kinkles, for his legal fees? There's death. It ain't happening. That ain't happening. And it could very well be that in order to keep the upheaval from his DOJ, which has already been decimated, that Kankles will bring an end to it. That he'll say, I got trillions coming in left, right, and center. I don't really need that money. So I don't really think that's going to go anywhere too fast, you all. The final thing that I wanted to look at today is we've all been seeing the pictures and images of the demolition of the East Wing of the White House, which, by the way, is Melania's area. But I guess Melania was like, I'm not using it. Do whatever you want with it, right? So I will say, we know the history of the White House. We know that, and me clearly as a Black woman, that how it was built by slave labor. Point blank, truth is a light. When I first saw the pictures, I don't know about you all, but I sort of had these images of, the spirits have already been, like, it's a wonder if you could have any sleep while you were there, while you've been there, and what you are doing. Spiritually, I feel, Spirit is saying, you all, the ancestors are saying, those whose blood is in that area, like, woo. They just showed me an image of a Titanic sort of energy around that ballroom when it's constructed. Like, that is not a place energetically where you want to be. But also, there have been some amazing readers on this platform, like Magister Tarot. I'm sorry if I'm saying the wrong round. Libby, let's just say Libby, and even Susan Lynn, who I think some months ago, way back when, predicted that she saw the White House empty. And I think Libby has talked about having it, seeing it as some sort of museum, almost like it won't. This is not where future presidents will want to operate. Why would you? Why would anybody, Republican or Democrat, want to go in on that energy? So I want to take a look at whether, in fact, the White House, whether spirits are really going to work this man and the others in there over because of this disturbance within the building. Let's look at that first. Spirit. Those who constructed that White House, whose labor went into that White House, and now it is being decimated, will this cause a spiritual uprising for those inside that house, inside the White House, the resident of that White House? Will it cause an uprising or something? We have the Two of Pentacles. Yes and no. Yes, they are there and their spirits are disturbed, but no, in the sense of he's almost oblivious. He'd have to have some sort of sensibility to see it. And because he welcomes darkness with the Darth Vader and other commentary, he welcomes darkness. So to the extent that his spirit is being pinged by what he's doing to destroy that area, he's almost accustomed to it, I guess is what I'm trying to say to you all. That's how Spirit is giving it to me. He's almost oblivious and accustomed to it because that's the energy he lives in. The Four of Wands, exactly. That's what he's married. He's married the energy of destruction. And so bringing him, it's almost, thank you, Spirit. They're saying, think of it this way. For all of the energy of light and joy and resistance that was put forth in the protests last Saturday, he sees that and brings that in as against him and speaking to who he is. But that's his fire, that's his fuel, that's his spiritual McDonald's, right? That's his spiritual McDonald's, that's his Big Mac, that's what so the spirits are going to be stirred up there. But the Five of Pentacles, they're going to be stirred up, but there's also a sense of this had to be. Ooh, I didn't see that coming. But there's also a sense of this had to be like everything has got to be taken down because there is this overarching theme of a rebirth and a renewal in the United States. And it even extends to, in that Five of Pentacles energy, it even extends to the White House. And we have the Ten of Swords because at this point, the energy that's been put in there is so ick that the ancestors who built that are almost like, let it be destroyed, because ultimately it needs to be in order to prove a point, allow a freedom. There's a release and allow a freedom, not only of their spirits, but of what will come afterward, how that area will become afterward. Now, whether the building will be empty or turned into a museum, I'm not sure about that. I almost feel like there's something about that plot of land. Maybe it is remade or redone in some way. Spirit, will the White House continue to function as the people's house or the house of the president? I have the Seven of Cups. Oh, there's some options that have to be considered. Maybe, maybe not. There's some options of what do we do with it. The rose garden has been changed into a patio, picnic patio area. The ballroom is done. Like, it's just not going to be. So who's going to want to walk in there and embrace that? Is that what you're showing me? The Hermit. Nobody's going to want it. Future presidents are not going to want to be in that space, you all. And the Four of Pentacles. But what do we do with it? It's here. It is a part of the history. It is significant. So what do we do with it? There's an effort to hold on to it. So will it undergo further renovation in the future, Spirit? Will the people take it back and it'll undergo further renovation? A Five of Wands, a lot of conflict around, because that's going to be, can you imagine how much money would have to be spent to undo all of that? A lot of conflict around it. And there's the Hierophant, government again. A lot of conflict around it, you all. It will not be the same. But it has to be something where that land is reconfigured. In other words, I'm not seeing the future presidents operating out of like Alexandria, Virginia. You know what I mean? And DC is only so large. The Ace of Wands. Spirit is giving. I've been waiting on an ace. Spirit is giving me my ace. So yeah, that's right. There will be an it feels like it will be remade in some way to still function in some way for presidents, future presidents. But there will be a lot of conflict around it because there will be this sense of, well, so much was already spent. How can we take this as it exists and make it something that is more reflective of the people? In other words, the bottom line is don't see it going back to, and I think this was the ancestral component that said this had to happen. We're not going to see the same old rose garden. You know, it's not going to be a return or redoing it as it was, but it will be something where the people decide this is not what we want. This is not, the gold, all the gold garishness of the oval, those kinds of things. It's going to be redone again. All right, you all. I hope that was helpful. Thank you so much. Let me know what you think about this setup and being able to see more of the table. And I'll be checking back in with you all on Friday. Remember, meanwhile, chin up and our shoulders back. Know who you are in this moment. Know that light really does matter. Joy matters. And we saw that so powerfully. Hold on to those images and that feeling and that vibe and take that right into your heart. All right. I'll talk to you on Friday. Bye.